Welcome to Coach Interviews, everybody. We have Malachi here, the Androids coach. Say hello.
Hello.
Hi there. Yeah, we're going to be doing his interview now, and let's go straight into the first question. What do you think is your team's greatest weakness?
Consistency. Half the time, 17 or cell is going to be billed as B2 or melee, and they'll decide to do, if they got a B2 build, they'll do melee or vice versa.
You,
So,
you think this is something in the new difficulty only?
mm, 17, no. He has always had an issue being on a B2 build, at least since I've become a coach, where half the time he'll do the B2s you want him to do, the other half he spends the entire time doing melee.
Interesting. What's your goal for the season? So some teams want to win the ball, other teams just want to get to a certain division. What about you?
Win the bowl, get back in the North Kai.
Ooh, aiming high on every front.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and you're gonna have some challenges on the way there. So, what teams do you think are the scariest?
At the moment, so before the season started, I was most scared of Muscle because of them getting Bojack and Trunks. Now that we're in the season, I'm most concerned about real. At the moment, it's ED because I'm about to face them, but I'm also seeing some good stuff coming from Derp and Blades.
Hmm.
So Derp can be summed up as Nova Shenron, and
Yeah,
Blades are just they're looking good, but pretty much, but every team has is either that they all have something that I'm concerned about.
yeah. It's kind of odd how you look at a team from the off season and from the previous season. It's like they're probably not gonna be that
Hmm.
strong, or they're probably gonna be the best, and then it's just no, no. That's not how it works here. This is Dragonball Z
Yep,
League.
yep.
So going on from the scariest team, which one do you think is the hardest to build for? So if they have like an innate power body breaker and your team tends to use power body a lot, that might be an issue. But what
Hmm.
about for you?
Uh, None jump to mind, and even after giving this particular question some thought, because we always try to counter. Sometimes that is just using lineups and whatever we consider the regular builds, or whether we'll tweak a build on a given week to do better. Like to do better against a certain opponent. Like if we know someone has a lot of B2 people, we might try to make sure more of our characters have we might try to have a more aggressive melee lineup to counter that. Um, but yeah,
So you build more adaptively, and you don't really have like a set firm uh, idea or identity for your team.
I mean, that being said, most characters still have like someone will be on a given type of build. Like
Oh
17
yes,
might
yeah, but
always be on a melee build, but
to give
you
a
know,
more clear example, I mean, the clearest example I could give is Team Cold, who are known for their ultimates. That's an
hmm,
identity they have. You can almost make sure that someone's gonna have an ultimate build.
right. And yeah, our team would not be in probably in that respect.
Yeah. All right. What made you want to be a part of this league? So why did you become a coach?
So some of that. So when I joined the league at the end of season 5, specifically I specifically joined the androids because I was very much impressed by how Gray had basically gotten the team to the bowl working on his own, and I thought that was quite impressive. And that was after a season of just being like, "Hey, this is something interesting. I might be interested in joining." And after the end of that season, I'm just like, "Hey, this is really cool," and so I want to do this. As to why I became a coach, when Gray left, Burn and Rebel basically kept poking and prodding me to apply, and so I did.
That
So
that was the end of the story. Were you the only one who applied for it?
no, so we had the first person who. So after Gray left, I applied and I had to withdraw for other reasons, and we had Android 9 become the coach,
I remember. Yeah, yeah.
and for reasons he had to he left at the very beginning of season 6, and so I ended up replacing him, and that's when Burn and Roa are like, "Hey, apply, go, do it
Do it.
now."
Do it. Anyway,
And that second round, I was the only one who ended up applying.
well, I mean, you're doing pretty well with the team. I don't think they've dropped out of East Sky, the lowest, so all good
Thank
news.
you.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think is the most interesting part of the league? So,
Honestly, it's trying to figure out how it's watching some of the characters change over time. Where, like, I think, to use Cold as an example, you had, Frieza and Mecha Frieza, who are well known for their ults. But if I remember correctly, there was a time where one of them was on a very melee build last season when we first got on the new difficulty. And other teams, or even on my team, where seasons 6 and 7, I tried very hard to put 17 on a B2 spam build, and this season he's on a melee build.
yes.
And so it's just fun watching a lot of the characters change over time.
Yeah, the new difficulty is definitely a part of that.
Yep.
I think half of the league must have changed in some way or another.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And most frustrating is, you watch all you make your plans, and, you have your tests, and you've done all your counters, and then the AI, when you hit the battlefield, the AI just takes a look at your plans and says, "Hey, those are nice. I'm going to go do this instead." And you watch it burn in fire. All your precious plans burn in fire.
Just gonna be sitting there with like a single tear falling down your face. All right, so your distaste in life trainers is pretty well known. For those who don't know, can you explain why you dislike them?
So this is mostly due to the new difficulty. For for those who are relatively new to the league, on the old difficulty, you could have a lot of, life drainers were very good at grabbing and sucking health away. However, the new difficulty, everyone's melee has improved to the point where it's very easy for them to get out of those life draining grabs, to where, and especially for someone like Dr. Giro or Android 19, you're basically dealing with a character who's never going to get above 2 bars. For Giro in particular, there were like 3 weeks out of the main season last season where he did more than 40,000 damage, and many of those weeks he wasn't even hard countered. There was the 1 week against your team where he got hard countered going up against a power body build, but that was it. um, and so you look at it, and he can't grab to get above 2 bars of key, so he can't do B2s. And if you give him charge Pataras like key +1 or launcher support, he still won't go above 2 bars. And if you give him high tension, it's basically like giving another character like Goku or Piccolo high tension. It'll help for those first 2 bars, but then it's basically not useless, but much less useful than for someone who charges all the way to full power like 17 or 8. And because of that, I just don't know that life drainers are worth it on the whole. Now, that being said, they can still have good weeks where, like, Giro had an elite match against the Ginyu Force in the preseason and then got very close to elite near the end of the season last season. And so, yes, that potential is there, but you're really playing a crapshoot with that, and I don't know that it's worth it.
Fair enough. So all forms of cell are pretty scary in their own right. Can you explain what you like and dislike about each form?
So let's start from the beginning. First form cell, he's got two quick chargeable B2s, which can do lots of damage. Um, and he has lots of transformations. Those are his advantages. His disadvantages, he's a life drainer, and transformations, because you can't always rely on him to transform. Sec- Second form, pretty much the same thing. Um, the only other advantage slash disadvantage he might have is the self destruct ultimate. And then you have Perfect Cell, where he has been for the last three seasons. Great B2s, great melee. Um, his B2s aren't the most damaging, but they tend to track well and have really good effectiveness. Um, I can't think of any straight disadvantages off the top of my head. Um, Super Perfect Cell has much better. His stats are generally higher than Perfect Cell's. His B2s do more damage. The disadvantages, and let me backtrack for a second. The other thing is his melee is partial brick breaker. So like with characters with power body, he only needs to hit 2 or 3 times in order to break it, rather than the full 5 or 6 hits. The disadvantages are his B2s, while they hit harder, do not track as well, and so they don't tend to be as good as perfect forms.
That is high as a connection rate. That seems fair.
Yep.
I think most people agree they'd rather have B2s that hit a lot than just powerful B2s.
Yep. I mean, because Super Perfect, for those who don't know, Super Perfect Cell has a full power Death Beam and a Rush B2 that is very short range and does not track. So it is. So now both of them hit for about 8 to 9,000 K, but or 8 to 9K. But when they only hit, one of out of every 3 or 4 times, I'll take the 6K, barrage death beam that hits every time.
Yeah, that thing cannot miss. All right, so your team is the androids, and it's obviously composed of all androids. But there are other teams in the league that do have androids as well. Is there any advice you could give to those teams on how to build those characters effectively?
For those who can use it, because Android 13 cannot use these Pataras, tension up is basically key plus one. High tension is key plus 1.5. And you just make sure your androids have a charged Patara of some form.
All right. So, what is your favorite part of the league other than the actual match? So, uh,
Personally, I like the planning and just seeing how people counter other teams.
just seeing
So,
how, like, the whole mind games and trying to figure out what they're gonna do and how they plan to beat certain teams with certain advantages.
yep.
Yeah, that stuff always is
You
interesting to put it nicely, because sometimes you could get some really unique things happening.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you go back over it with, because I've gone over some of the matches in the past with like, I'm trying to think, Motork. We had talked about our match where they thought we were going to do A, B, and C, but we're like, well, no, that's not really how we look at things, and so that's why we did this. When we reviewed our match after during the off season, because there were just some interesting things that had happened with our match during season 7, and we're like, well, why did y'all try that or this, that, and the other?
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to hear a different mindset.
Hmm. And the community is pretty open about that sort of stuff, especially from
Yep.
past seasons. It's really everyone's pretty talkative,
Hmm.
which is awesome. On to the next question. What teams grab your interest outside of your own team? So, if you had to leave the androids, where would you go?
At this point, probably either Afterlife or I still have a soft spot for Gohan's um, Afterlife because they're kind of still trying to figure things out. Um,
Yeah, a lot of people are gonna say that. I have a feeling
yeah,
it's like
and
the
for
new team.
yeah, and Gohan's were actually the other team I was considering joining when I first joined. It was for me, it was either Gohan's or Androids, and I never really moved on from that. So probably them.
Okay, fair enough. What do you think is the key to victory? So some teams go for a balance out everything, while others go for a glass cannon format. So again, I'm going to use Cold because they are one of the teams that has the most vivid builds because you can clearly see how they build, and it's been pretty consistent throughout most seasons. They
Yeah,
have a glass cannon format of alts, B2s, and then the others, the weaker characters, usually get the sprinklings of the melee and the defense, even if that might not be their strongest suit.
right. I tend to think it's just trying to make your team consistent. It's understanding what your characters like to do and building around that. Because if you know, like with Frieza, Mecha Frieza, if you know they love to throw out those ultimates, make it to where they can throw more of them out.
Fair.
Um,
Well, let me pose a question then. If you had your team all wanting similar Pataras, your strongest characters, say everyone needs a little bit of charge on your team, your strongest characters could use the charge a lot, but so could your weakest. How would you spread it out, even if your stronger characters can do better melee than your weaker ones?
in that case, I tend to try to figure out what's unique about each character and go for and try to help accentuate that. To give an example, Ader, of all the members on my team, he is the only one with a max power B1. So he's, you know, even though there's several characters who have done well with something like Kibito's Secret Art or Secret Measures in the past, Ader's the one who gets priority for that. But we also have, so that frees up those two Patara points for other things for other characters who might also need a charge boost or that indignation boost. Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, no. Find out a unique feature that that one character has apart from the rest of the team, and work around that, and see
Yep.
if it functions well. With Ader, I think we can all say it functions pretty well. Yeah.
Yep.
So, do you think you are adapting well with the new changes that happened since your first day as a coach compared to now?
I think so. I think the biggest change has definitely been the new difficulty, and I think the team as a whole shows that we have adapted well to that.
It's a good, it's a good clean answer. How do you feel about the changes that happened over the off season? So there's been a few minor ones here and there. A couple characters nerfed. Go on.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. I was mostly happy that the savior restriction did not apply to my team because all the they weren't all the B2 monsters, even though all of them technically triggered a cutscene. They were all rush B. They were all rush ultimates that didn't really
yeah, I think rush are very
trigger.
difficult to get off though because you can.
Yep.
They're very easy to just dodge out of the way.
Yep.
Yeah, I've
So
seen people dodge Teen Gohan, like high speed dodge Teen Gohan's ultimate.
and still get hit.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's got a weird
And
radius on it.
it does. And I think that a lot of the changes that happened were, especially for like the Gohans, that one change I think made them go from a probably the scariest team in North Kai to one where they're strong, they're still scary in theory. They still seem to have some issues they need to work out, but they're still scary, but they're not the utter terror that at the end of season 7 it looked like they might be.
Not having
Um,
Super Saiyan 2 team Gon's a pretty big uh, downside.
it is, and that's not to diss Super Saiyan 1 or Base, but
Oh no, those are.
that's
He's still good. By
he
all
he's
means,
still
he is a
good.
still.
He
He's a great fighter.
Yeah, I mean he's still good. He's still got a lot of those other restrictions on him from the fact that that father son Kamehameha is so damn devastating.
Hmm.
But it's a I think changes like that take some of the teams that just looked like they would be the next Super Saiyans and put them in a much more. It kept them balanced, I think, is the
Yeah.
way to put it.
I don't think they're gonna drop out of East Sky the lowest, so it's not like they took a huge hit from it.
Yeah, I mean, I could still see them like if they still have issues like they're having right now, they could definitely fall, you know,
Right.
West Kai. But I don't. If they keep up with what they have going right, I think I could definitely see them staying East Kai. I don't see them being in South Kai again anytime soon.
No, no. They've got a very strong team with the whole pickups they've done. On to the next question. Who would you consider the mule of your team? So a lot of teams have that one character that's just super consistent. Might not be the strongest, but he always pulls his weight.
I think that's a very given the second half of this question doesn't receive as much credit as he should.
Right. That also.
That would that would also I think have to go to Ader, simply because no matter what, he pretty much always takes his man. He hasn't had when I looked over the season 7 stats, I don't think there was a week where he did less than, or it was very rare to see him do less than 30,000. Whereas 17 and Cell both had weeks that were like 15,000.
Yeah, a little less
Uh,
consistent.
they had the on the one hand, Cell and 17 and even 16 have all teased me with going elite at times, and that's something that Ader hasn't done. The trade-off is I would rather everyone do at least their 40K every week, and Ader gets pretty damn close to that.
Yep. Give Vader his credit. I think I'm gonna switch this to calling them the humble fighters of the team. It just seems bad. Anyway, how do you feel about your division and the competition in it?
I hope that that they're all good teams.
Do you though?
Colds,
Don't you want them to be weak?
I want them to do well, because if they all do well, then we can't all get nerfed. Um,
Okay.
but I mean, Muscle's doing well. I think we're tied right now. I want them to lose this coming week. Val's, if they can get O'Reilly working again, they're going to be terrifying. Um, Cold, it still remains to be seen. I mean, they've had 2 rough weeks in the past. Don't get me wrong, I want to see them all lose, but I want that bye week already. Um, but at the same time, I still want to see the rest of the league do well.
Right. No, I got you. Speaking of Cold though, because I have been trashing them just a little bit about their team being very alt heavy and lopsided in that fashion. They have, from my knowledge, have been changing it up a bit. So
Yep, I
they're
mean,
they're
they're
definitely trying to make their team a lot better. It's
yeah,
probably
they're
gonna take a
definitely
while.
looking at their builds from the last couple of weeks. They have been trying new things, and I do hope it works for them. Um, but it will be interesting to see how that works out through the season. Because I think they put Mecha Frieza back on attack +1 this past week, and that will be something to see. But
Will
that
take a while to work out and see
yeah.
if the team meshes. On to your next question. What record do you think your team will end with this season? It's early, but
Yep.
assuming that these last preseason weeks and last 2 weeks are a fair indication, and from what you know of your team, what do you think you'll end
My hope is 15-0.
at?
Um,
Ain't that
real,
everyone's?
yes, that's everyone's hope. Realistically, I'm hoping for 10-5. Um, Pretty high,
Yeah,
but I think there's really only. I think with the rule changes to the league, a lot of teams still seem to be trying to figure out what they're going to do. There's still some scary teams that we've got to face. I mean, we had, because I'll be perfectly honest, Dragon Ball Warriors scared the crap out of me with Nam, and that's why we had the build. That's why I built Cell the way he was built, and we saw how that worked out.
yeah, overkill.
Um, I wasn't going to say it.
It's true.
It is true. Um, but there's still a lot of other teams where I see them doing really good stuff, and I I want to hope my team can pull it out. I think we can. We put a lot of thought into, or at least I put a lot of thought. I can't speak for the rest of my team at the moment, but I put a lot of thought into who we bench and when, and as to whether or not we can do that. Um, and if that will, even if it'll be close, do I think, we can do that? And I'm hoping, always hope for the best, but I think realistically there will still be some times where even with the best laid plans, hits the battlefield and it all goes to hell.
Yeah, the game Dragonball Z League is still a bit of a dice roll at times. But
Hmm.
personally speaking, I think the androids are actually one of the strongest in the league right now. So I think you guys could hit 10-15. I could see that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's what we hit in season 6, and I would like to improve upon the 8-7 win loss record from last season.
Yeah. That
So
last season was a building season for most people.
it was.
Yeah. All right. Next question. When you became a coach in the league, you didn't have a lot of supporters on the team. Do you find it difficult to have a few supporters, or do you like the situation where it's less of a wait to get everyone's opinion and more of a back and forth with the one person you have? With no one, just make your own decisions.
So there's pros and cons to both. So season 6, I basically did this all by myself. Um, so it was basically up to me to go pull, because I was trying to counter every team. I would pull that team's builds for the previous several weeks and try to counter them, and I would always come up with my ideas. And I didn't have to worry about someone else saying, "Hey, that idea is terrible. Here's what we should do." And so it was always my vision of how the team could work, and a lot of times I felt like that worked really well. However, when you have those other people coming in, sometimes they just catch things that you look at it for a couple hours, but they still catch things that you miss because they're coming at it from a different direction. And so there's sometimes, and so that's very helpful and it's awesome. And that's why having supporters is so, I love having the supporters I do. Um, so, the con, so that's the con with the, having, just me. The con is, there's sometimes things that I miss. On the other hand, the team really reflects like what I thought how I thought they could best
I'm more
perform.
control.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
I, but I prefer having other people to help me do that work, precisely because I think having those different viewpoints, those different thoughts, can help us catch things that just one person by themselves might miss.
yeah, I think that's for the majority of the league. I think we'd all agree more supporters are usually a good thing. That's why we're always like, come to our team, come to our team.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, so, does the reputation of your team being one of the best every year put pressure on you? Is it easy to deal with, or do you sometimes feel like people are too critical of your team because of it? Let me also pose this.
So,
Let me also pose this. Your team is one of the best, so you usually end up facing stronger lineups. Do you think that's an issue, or does that put in some pressure?
personally, I always assume when I look at how I do my team is built, I always try to figure out like if I'm that team, what's the best lineup they're gonna put against me, and that's what I build for. And so I think I want to say yes, it puts pressure on in the sense that there's always that expectation that you're gonna do well, and so when those best laid plans go to they just you just watch them crumble and turn into dust. There are some times when people are probably a little too critical of either AI derps or counters just not working. On the other hand, because I'm always expecting the best, I don't know that like I personally feel that pressure as much as say someone else might.
All right, that's a good answer. What was your main objective when you became a coach? Was it to make someone in the team better, have a certain amount of victories, or just straight up win the ball?
So in season 6, when I first became a coach, my 3 goals were to have a positive win-loss record, make sure everyone on the team had at least a 40K average because that showed that they were consistently taking their man on the field, and to get into North Kai. Um, Last season, goals were a little more modest, which was basically, figure out how to make everyone work on the new difficulty and also hopefully have a positive win-loss record. This season, as I already said, goal is to, win the bowl, get back in the North Kai.
All right.
And um,
Okay. On to the next question. Do you have a favorite moment since you became a coach, like a particular match that you were really glad you, or that made you really glad you're participating in the league?
so, a couple actually. A couple from season 6 was surprisingly enough, the so-called Christmas miracle where Dynamics broke the Androids' win streak. Just because it was just because I was in chat and it was awesome to see like the chat at that time when that happened
Just explode.
just explode.
Yeah, that happens. I love
Um,
that.
Another one from that is the first time Ader really got his due respect from many others when he and Giro nearly brought back a very bad, what would look like a very bad loss from the Blades to basically a nail biting, to the last hit point match, and after Cell and 16 had just kind of dropped the ball completely. Um, that was another good one. And I also liked it when Chris Sabat
Yeah, who
joined us.
doesn't? Yeah, that was
That was an awesome time.
yeah, yeah, man. That was probably a lot of people's favorite, but I'm just gonna pitch my favorite for the androids when Yajirobe and Cell, I think in season 2, went on for a 40-minute match because Yajirobe, Sensu Bean, and Cell kept transforming and healing,
And like,
and it was the
yep,
worst thing ever for everyone else.
yep. That was before my time as a coach.
Uh,
So, yep.
that
But
was
yeah,
some
that
great
I
stuff,
have seen
man.
that match. That one lasted quite some time,
Yeah, pretty sure that's probably the longest match in Dragonball Z League history.
quite possibly.
Probably.
Um, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then
Um,
and just to annoy Motork, I'm also going to throw in the Earth Defenders Androids match from last season when Ader vaporized Chaozu.
that's rude. They don't even have Chaozu anymore.
Yep.
They
Oh,
just
there's
got rid
one.
of him.
And how can we forget the game trolling Squee in season 6 in Androids versus Cold when he wanted his Cell Frieza matchup, and at the very last second after 16 had died, it switched out to 17.
Oh, the game is so brilliant with Squeeze sometimes.
Yes.
It just doesn't like him, and I love that.
No, it doesn't. And there are just sometimes when it is beautiful because of moments like that. Because, especially just on the moment when he's like, it's finally giving it to me. No!
Brilliant.
Ah.
Right. So, from your master list of available team members, what would be your dream team, or what most people call a nightmare match?
um, Cell 17, 13, and on her better days, Aurelie. And then we can have Ader on the sideline, or Ader as the fifth member, just so Dragon Ball Warriors can never get him.
That is terrifying. That is just the worst. I hate that that's even in the craziest worlds possible.
Yep. Well, this is why I keep hoping Aurelie does bad, because then maybe they'll drop Aurelie for Pan or Zangaya, and
I'm gonna
Zero
say
can
this
be
right
off my
now.
team.
Regardless of how bad Aurelie does in a season, I would never drop her. Never.
Just to make sure I never get her.
That, yes, and because it's Aurelie, she can be amazing.
She can be,
Yeah.
but I mean, it hasn't stopped other teams from making interesting drop choices.
Like, if you're gonna drop someone, make sure that's strong or has the potential to be strong. Make sure you drop someone that no one else can pick up, because otherwise you're never gonna see that character again.
Yep, that's why Zero and 16 are on the drop list before Ader is.
Fair enough. All right, and we have community questions this time from real people that are alive and care, sort of. So they were posted on our forum page under Squeeze Layer in our thread, and we're gonna start off with the first person, Sindenas. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong. I just call him Sin. Let's start off with his first question. Given your team's theme of androids and how often you work with their unique way of charging, what is the biggest pro and con in your opinion of said charge method?
Biggest pro, you have lots of charge Patara options. I could literally give every single person on my team a different charge Patara and still not have exhausted our options.
Everyone's B2s today. Everyone.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's at least 6 different. So just as a straight charge option, you have the blue Pataras, launch of support, hatred of Saiyans, tension up, and high tension. That's 6 Pataras right there. And that's not even including like active heart or indomitable fighting spirit or rising fighting spirit. And so,
brilliant.
When you have characters who passively charge all the way up, those passive charge Pataras, basically convert into a straight key plus. I sat down and put something on the forums about that a long time ago for those who use androids. So hopefully they can make use of that. Did the math for them and everything. Biggest con is you are charging all the time, yes, but it's much slower than active charging. Unless you want to put 6 or 7 points into charging, it's just not going to be as fast. And so when they get low on key, it can really hamper both their melee and their B2 usage.
A lot of high speed dodges and you're out of
and
charge
yep.
and can't do anything for a while.
Yep.
On to Sin's second question. You sort of answered this already, so we could just skim it through quickly. What do you think you have trouble with finding Patars to give your roster, since they're both good at melee and in B2s for the most part?
Nope. In part because we can make use of those passive charge Patars to take place of other charge Patars. That frees things up to let androids do whatever they want. Like, biggest piece of advice in that respect is, if you have an android fighter, when you do your off-season AI testing, put key +1 or high tension on them just to see what they do with extra key. And that will tell you what they're going to be good at. And then you can bring in other Pataras around that.
All right. And just to clarify for anybody listening, we might be skipping some questions that you asked because they have been answered already. So, on to the next question that hasn't been already answered. Who is your favorite team member? Since it's 17.
At the moment, it's Ader because he's never teased me with going elite and not followed through.
It's not a
Every,
tease.
every single one of the others has gotten to within somewhere between 90,000 and 100K at some point since becoming a coach, and they never go elite except during the preseason.
Okay. Um, where do you realistically expect to end up the season, given the well? This is honestly the same question that's already been asked. You said you're gonna expect to be 10-5, right?
That's what I would like to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we got your answers there. So, on to Harame's. I believe the only question that hasn't been asked is how are your weekly decisions handled in your team? For her, she implements a schedule to discuss lineups and builds throughout the week. Do you do it more freeform, or do you have a certain routine? Like this day we do this day we do builds, and this day we do costumes.
Yep. Uh, Pretty much the only thing that follows a schedule of any sort is pretty much I pull all the builds every week of the team that we're going to be facing, and that is something I pull as soon as builds are available, so I can start looking at that. And pretty much the rest of the week is basically as people are able to comment. I try to have something like an initial lineup pretty early on in the week, and other people will have their lineup or their ideas, whatever they're able to do that week, that they can comment on it, and we try to balance out, make sure everyone's ideas are listened to and incorporated as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good way to handle things. On to Buzz's questions. Do you ever regret not using Cell's best form, aka second?
No,
Yeah,
he's a life.
yeah.
Yeah, life drainer is no, no.
No, two no's, not just one, two. Um, Currently, who do you feel is your team's ace in the hole? I think you mentioned that you prefer Ader in every situation, favorite and just best character.
He wouldn't necessarily. He would definitely be my favorite. Cell is of course always strong. Uh, the problem is just like I don't know that our team has like one particular person who's other than Cell, of course, who's just like heads and shoulders above everyone else. And even then, 17 is usually right up there with him in the rankings.
Right. Well, in that case, I think we can agree Cell is the one who's most likely to have a monster day.
Yeah.
Okay. On to Dimensions questions. Do you think there'd be a free agent you would not take over Dr. Hero?
Uh, when 19 counts as a free agent, um, I wouldn't take 19 over Giroux.
That's just a worse Hero.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Uh, but in but probably any free agent with a B1 healing move, just because of the eternal life restriction.
Mm. That's a fair argument. And for his second question, is it difficult to is it the difficulty to land grabs that's the reason why Jiro is held in such low regard? Or is it that you can't find a solid AI that works with or without the grabs?
So, to kind of specifically answer the last part of that, so it has more to do with the fact that life drainers are just at a much bigger, especially for someone like Giroux, who depends on not so much the life draining, it's the key drain that's the big thing here for Giroux, because he only gets those first two bars to charge up. Other teams like Afterlife and Derp, when they had 19, they tried to work around that by giving 19 high tension or unleash latent power, so that 19 constantly has something charging up. Um, I just don't see that as a viable way to do it, because you're trying, while yes, an android should always have key, he's just not able to keep up that charge if he's doing melee. So like what we try to do is just make him a tank and keep him out there as long as possible, with or regardless of how many grabs he does. And so, we did a lot of testing with Giroux. We basically tested him on every AI at least once, with the exception of maybe Goku AI and one other AI
Okay.
on the new difficulty. So,
And
and
still seemingly your worst.
well, it's not so much that he's the worst. I mean, statistically speaking, last season, Ader tends to be our worst player stat wise.
Well, his stats are wonky. Let's just put
Yeah,
it that way. A character going
but
elite once can really change
yeah,
his stats.
and but as I was noting earlier, like last season, out of most of Giroux's performances, he really struggled to hit that 40K mark on a consistent basis. And a lot of it goes back to the fact that if he doesn't do his grabs, he doesn't have key or longevity. And that because of that, even something like high tension can't bridge that gap by itself. And so I think that just leaves them as the problem child as far as that goes. Because when Giroux worked and he could get his grabs off, he did great. Because against both Booze and I think it was not, it was against Booze, Rugrats, and I want to say either Derp or Ginyu that Giroux did really well on during the main season last season, and it was because he could get his grabs off. Is that the problem is just the rest of the league's melee has gotten good enough to the point where they see it coming,
yeah.
And I just don't know that without us going back to the old difficulty, that someone like Giroux or 19 could be really, really good. Now, that being said, if Afterlife comes up with something for 19 that's just amazing, I will be more than happy to look at it and see if we can make it work for Giroux.
Right.
And I'm also not above, if we just want that last little bit of surprise against a team whose melee is kind of shaky, I am more than happy to pull Giroux out of retirement and put him as a starter. Not saying that will happen, but if we ever felt like we needed to,
just
because
the rest of the people out there,
just to scare everyone out there, and because realistically, when Bleepmancer and I were looking at him last season, we're like, he's not broken. He's doing what he's supposed to do. It's just on the new difficulty, his ability to do it has been hampered.
Yep, I think that's a really good way to put it. And finally, your last question. Do you have a message for anyone who's undecided, who is looking to join a team or looking to switch to a new team?
Find a team you're passionate about, and always looking for new people on our team. Yep.
That is the most humble plug. That is it for Malachi's coaches interview, everybody. We will post the next coach to be interviewed on the forum thread. It'll be in the description. And if you guys have any comments, want to ask us any questions, or just want to bitch at us for how stupid we are, leave that in the comments or in the thread we have the link to, and we will try to respond as soon as possible. That's it. We will see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.